All right, everyone, welcome to this breakdown. Today, we're going to walk through exactly what you should do if the IRS shows up at your front door. And when I say exactly, I mean step by step. We're taking a situation that is honestly one of the most stressful and frightening experiences imaginable for ordinary people, and we're completely changing the perspective. Instead of panic, this becomes a complete lesson in protecting yourself legally. I want you to imagine this scene for a moment. You're relaxing at home. Suddenly, two people dressed in professional suits arrive at your door. They display a badge and tell you they are with the IRS. Instantly, your stomach sinks, right? Well, the words that come out of your mouth during the next 60 seconds can determine whether you lose $10,000 or maybe even $200,000. Truthfully, it could even decide whether you keep your freedom. The reality is that 99% of ordinary people completely fail this situation within the first 10 seconds. And here's the important part. The IRS fully expects you to fail, but not today. Today, we're going to arm you with the precise information you need to navigate this situation correctly using insights drawn directly from expert legal source material. Get a notebook ready because this is the survival guide you genuinely need. All right, let's jump right into this with a true story. Let's discuss Mike. Mike is a landscaper from Houston, and his experience perfectly shows how attempting to cooperate can completely ruin your life. Mike had a friendly 32-minute conversation at his own kitchen table, and that conversation ended up costing him an enormous $83,400 and almost destroyed his business entirely. Let me explain the situation. Mike owns a small landscaping company. He operates 5 trucks, employs 14 workers, and many of them are day laborers paid in cash. Pretty common in that industry, right? 2 Saturdays ago, Mike was finishing his morning coffee. His doorbell rang. He assumed it was an Amazon delivery or something simple, but when he opened the door, he found 2 men standing there wearing dark charcoal suits, white shirts, and navy blue ties. They opened leather credential wallets, showed badges, and introduced themselves as special agents with the Internal Revenue Service Criminal Investigation Division. Then they asked the one question that changes everything. "Can we come inside and speak with you?" Mike said yes. Why? Because his wife raised him to be polite. Because he grew up believing an honest man welcomes visitors into his home. And because in 20 years of running his business, he had never even received a parking ticket. He considered himself a good man. He honestly believed that saying people repeat all the time, "If you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to fear." So for the next 32 minutes, Mike unknowingly handed over his financial future while sitting at his own kitchen table. The agents acted friendly. They asked simple conversational questions. "Mike, how long have you owned your company? How do you pay employees? Do customers pay you in cash?" And Mike answered every question. He even stood up and poured them coffee. Then around minute 27, one agent slid a document across the table. They described it as a summary of taxpayer contact and casually asked him to initial each line just to confirm their conversation was accurate. Mike initialed every line and signed the bottom of the page. The result of that coffee conversation was devastating. The IRS pursued Mike for a total tax liability of $83,400, and that amount came before penalties and interest were even added. But here is the truly brutal part. Roughly $41,000 of the total was something called a trust fund recovery penalty. That specific penalty attaches directly to Mike personally. Bankruptcy cannot erase it. The IRS can legally bypass his LLC entirely and take the money from the equity inside his family home if they decide to do so. He could even lose his contractor's license. So that friendly half-hour coffee conversation ended up costing him dearly. Section 1. Who is standing at your door? You must identify the agent. If you want to avoid Mike's outcome, The very first thing you need to do is identify exactly who is standing on your porch, because there are three completely different categories of IRS employees who might show up, and each one wants something entirely different. Let's break this down carefully. Understanding these differences is absolutely critical. We're looking at the major distinctions between collections, audits, and criminal investigations. First, the revenue officer. This person handles collections. If a revenue officer appears at your home, it generally means you owe back taxes, often $25,000 or more. It also means the IRS has decided that warning letters and phone calls are no longer working. These employees do not carry firearms. They do not arrest people. Their sole responsibility is collecting money or seizing assets. They can freeze bank accounts. They can garnish wages. They can place a federal tax lien on your property. They can even seize a vehicle directly from your driveway. So, if a revenue officer arrives at your home, understand clearly, the polite stage of collections has officially ended. Second, we have the revenue agent. This person is an auditor. Revenue agents almost never appear at someone's home without warning. That is not their normal process. Their job is reviewing your records, and they usually arrange appointments far in advance using formal notices such as Letter 2705 or Letter 985. So if an auditor suddenly appears at your home unexpectedly, something has gone very wrong. Either your audit has escalated dramatically, you missed several appointments, or your case has quietly been referred for fraud development. Third, and by far the most serious, is the special agent from the Criminal Investigation Division. Listen very carefully here. Only special agents carry both badges and firearms. They are federal law enforcement officers. Their duty is enforcing Title 26 of the United States Code, the Criminal Tax Code. They almost always operate in pairs and possess full arrest authority. They are not standing at your door because you forgot to file an extension. They are there because they believe they already possess evidence of intentional criminal tax fraud, covering the previous 3 to 6 years of your tax filings. If a special agent appears at your home, you are no longer dealing with late fees or penalties. You are potentially facing felony charges, massive restitution demands, and up to 5 years in federal prison for every single count. Regardless of who claims to be at your door, you must verify their identity. Every IRS employee working in the field carries 2 required forms of identification. The first is called a pocket commission. It looks like a folding leather wallet displaying a photo identification card. The second is an HSPD 12 credential, a plastic smart chip identification card. Both IDs display their legal name, photograph, and most importantly, their exact job title. You need to request both credentials, but, and this is extremely important, you do it through the glass, through a window, a peephole, or your security camera. Under no circumstances should you unlock and open the door just to inspect a badge. Make them hold the credentials directly against the glass or camera lens while you examine them carefully. Knowing whether the badge says revenue officer or special agent completely changes the seriousness of the encounter you're facing. Here's another important piece of context that changes the modern landscape entirely. Due to a major policy change announced in July 2023, revenue officers, the collections personnel, now usually schedule visits beforehand using a specific notice called Letter 725B. The IRS made this adjustment primarily for employee safety. However, and this matters tremendously, that scheduling rule does not apply to criminal investigation special agents. Those agents still appear without warning because they must. Think about it. If they mailed a polite notice saying, "We are investigating you for criminal tax fraud and will visit next Tuesday," their biggest concern would be that you immediately destroy records or erase computer files. So here is the key takeaway. If you receive an unannounced IRS visit in 2026, and you know you did not miss a scheduling notice, the individual at your door is very likely a criminal special agent. The stakes immediately become extremely serious. Moving into Section 2, the 3 fatal mistakes. Let's discuss what you absolutely should not do. Now that we understand who may be standing outside, let's examine the legal traps ordinary people walk directly into. These are the exact same mistakes Mike made at his kitchen table. And these errors happen in every industry and every income level. It doesn't matter whether someone is a plumber or a surgeon. People believe they are simply cooperating and being helpful, when in reality, they are systematically destroying their own legal protection. The central point here is avoiding these 3 extremely common mistakes: inviting agents inside your home, casually speaking with them, and signing paperwork. Let's examine exactly why each of these polite actions can become legally devastating. Mistake number 1, allowing them inside. We need to discuss the 4th Amendment. This constitutional protection shields you from unreasonable searches and seizures without your consent or a warrant signed by a judge. A collections revenue officer does not possess a warrant. Even criminal special agents almost never have a warrant during their initial visit. Why? Because if they already had the probable cause necessary for a judge to approve a warrant, they would not be politely ringing your doorbell. They would be executing a raid. They arrive without a warrant because they want a conversation on your territory. They want you feeling comfortable, relaxed, and more likely to lower your guard. But the moment you say, "Sure, come inside," and they step through your doorway, you voluntarily surrender your 4th Amendment protection. Instantly gone. These agents are highly trained to mentally catalog your assets the second they enter your home. They notice loose documents on your desk. They see the expensive vehicle parked in the garage. They notice cash sitting on the counter. Some are even trained to quietly photograph items with their phones when you turn away for a moment to grab water or coffee. If your visible lifestyle does not match the income reported on your tax returns, every expensive item they see becomes another piece of evidence supporting a criminal case. You can remain completely polite while keeping a locked door between yourself and them. Mistake number 2, answering questions. This is where the 5th Amendment matters. The 5th Amendment protects you from being forced to testify against yourself. And the Supreme Court has clearly ruled that this protection applies whether you are handcuffed inside an interrogation room or standing casually on your own porch wearing slippers on a Saturday morning. You do not have to answer any questions. You do not need to confirm your identity. You do not need to confirm ownership of the property. You do not even need to discuss your tax filing history. The IRS relies heavily on casual conversation to lock people into a version of events. They ask harmless-sounding questions. Nice weather today? Where did your family vacation this year? Beautiful house. How long have you lived here? Business seems busy. How many employees do you have? Even innocent-sounding answers can become traps. Why? Because once you state something verbally in front of 2 federal witnesses, you cannot later contradict yourself in court. If your story changes later, you may face charges for making false statements to federal agents. And that is an entirely separate felony under Title 18, Section 10001. Every year, people go to federal prison not because of their original tax issue, but because they panicked and lied to agents who already knew the truth before knocking on the door. Mistake number 3 is signing documents. Never do it. If they slide paperwork toward you, do not sign anything, do not initial it, do not date it. Their forms are intentionally designed to appear routine and harmless. Take Form 9297, the Summary of Taxpayer Contact. That is exactly what Mike signed. It appears to be a friendly recap of a conversation, but legally it becomes a verified statement. Once you sign it, Your statements are treated exactly as if you testified under oath inside federal court. There are additional forms they may attempt to hand you, such as Form 4564, a formal document request, or Form 433A, an extensive financial disclosure form that essentially hands them a roadmap to your bank accounts and property. Never sign these documents on the spot. The one form you may eventually use is Form 2848, the Power of Attorney form, but that should be filed later by your licensed tax representative. It is not something you sign while an agent stands at your front door. That form establishes a legal firewall between you and the IRS. If they attempt to hand you anything, politely instruct them to leave it in your mailbox. Section 3, the 6-sentence protocol. This is your exact script. Write this down, memorize it, print it, put it on your refrigerator. Learn it word for word so you can handle this encounter perfectly. These 6 sentences are specifically designed to protect your rights and formally end the encounter without you ever unlocking the deadbolt. You say these statements firmly through the glass or through your security camera. Let's examine why each sentence matters legally. Sentence 1. May I please see your credentials? This is not rude behavior. It is basic security. Every year, scammers impersonate IRS agents to steal money from victims. Always verify identity first. Sentence 2. I do not consent to you entering my home. This is not obstruction. The Internal Revenue Manual itself specifically instructs field agents that they cannot enter a private residence without consent. You are simply refusing that consent. Sentence 3. I will not be answering any questions today. This clearly invokes your constitutional protections. We'll discuss this more in a moment. Sentence 4. Please leave any documents in my mailbox. This is excellent process control. Delivering documents through your mailbox counts as formal delivery, but it removes the pressure of holding paperwork in your hand while stressed and overwhelmed. Sentence 5. I will communicate through my tax representative. The moment you state that you have representation, IRS rules require agents to stop direct questioning and communicate through your representative instead. Sentence 6. Thank you. Goodbye. That officially ends the interaction. Anything agents continue shouting afterward is simply an attempt to prolong a conversation you have already legally terminated. Walk away. Let's focus on sentence 3 briefly. I will not be answering any questions today. In the important 2013 Supreme Court case, Salinas versus Texas, the court ruled that remaining silent alone is not enough to protect yourself. As strange as it sounds, if you simply stare silently at agents without speaking, prosecutors may later argue that your silence suggested guilt. You must verbally and clearly invoke your rights. Saying, I will not be answering any questions today, activates your Fifth Amendment protections, and once properly invoked, your silence cannot be used against you before a jury. Section 4. Criminal escalation. This is where the stakes become years of your life instead of dollars in your bank account. Let's examine how situations escalate once criminal investigation becomes involved. A surprise visit from criminal special agents is internally called a non-custodial interview by the IRS. But that term is highly misleading. This is not a friendly fact-finding mission where they are trying to understand a misunderstanding. By the time special agents appear at your home, the investigation is usually already complete. They already possess your tax returns. They already pulled years of bank records using grand jury subpoenas. They have likely spoken with your accountant, your bookkeeper, and maybe even your former spouse. They are not looking for documents. They are seeking verbal admissions proving criminal intent. And they want those admissions in your own words. Their goal is collecting statements they can package into a criminal case before presenting it to a grand jury for indictment. Consider Sarah. She was an esthetician in Phoenix discussed in the source material. A revenue agent appeared unexpectedly asking to review her records. Sarah, trying to cooperate politely, handed everything over. Those exact records later became Exhibit A through Exhibit P in her criminal review. The result was a crushing $30,000 assessment. Giving them what they want only performs their job for them. Or look at Jim. Jim was a successful 61-year-old urologist whose situation perfectly demonstrates the danger of trying to explain yourself. Jim had established an offshore captive insurance company and routed income from his medical practice through it for roughly 4 years. Then one morning at 6:45 a.m., 2 special agents arrived at his house. Remember what I said earlier? They already had his offshore banking records. They already knew where the money was. What they needed was evidence of intent, because intent is the line separating a civil fraud penalty from a federal prison sentence. Jim, being educated and wanting to cooperate, opened the door, invited the agents inside for coffee, and spent 2 hours explaining his offshore arrangement. Today, Jim faces federal criminal indictment. If Jim had simply remained silent and followed the 6-sentence protocol through the glass, he likely would have faced only a large civil tax penalty. Instead, he literally talked himself into indictment. Section 5, the 48-hour survival plan. These are immediate action steps. Once you successfully use the 6-sentence protocol and the agents finally leave your property, you are going to feel enormous relief. Your adrenaline will still be racing. But understand this clearly, your work is not finished. A critical 48-hour countdown begins the second those agents leave your driveway. What you do during that period can shape your future completely. Your immediate action plan must be strict and absolute. First, as soon as they leave, sit down and document every detail while your memory remains fresh. Record names, badge numbers, every question they asked, and every response you gave. Second, and this is incredibly important, do not delete files, emails, or text messages. Do not shred paperwork. Once federal agents have officially contacted you, deleting or destroying material can easily become obstruction of justice charges. Authorities often prosecute the cover-up more aggressively than the original issue itself. Third, hire professional representation immediately. That means a tax attorney, CPA, or enrolled agent. Have them file Form 2848, the power of attorney, that same day. Another critical step is preparing your family and staff for this protocol. Spouses and adult children should understand not to open the door because family privilege protections apply to them as well. If you own a business, post this protocol near the reception desk. Nervous employees often hand over payroll records or financial binders simply because someone with a badge requested them politely. That becomes devastating evidence for the IRS. Quick warning about scams. Genuine IRS agents will never demand payment through gift cards or cryptocurrency. They will never threaten to send local police to arrest you over the phone. If anyone on the phone says those things, hang up immediately. Contact the actual IRS and notify local law enforcement. Here's another fascinating concept you absolutely need to understand, especially regarding collections. It's called the Collection Statute Expiration Date, or CSED. The IRS does not possess unlimited power forever. Legally, they have exactly 10 years from the official tax assessment date to collect the debt. Once those 10 years expire, the debt legally disappears, so never sign anything extending that deadline. Sometimes agents may casually ask you to sign Form 900, claiming it simply pauses the process while things get sorted out. What it really does is extend the statute of limitations. Do not sign it. In IRS collection cases, time can become your greatest advantage. Many aggressive tactics used during door visits are specifically designed to pause or restart that 10-year clock. Keep the timeline moving in your favor by refusing to sign anything at all. But what if you want to move proactively? What if you know your previous tax returns contain serious issues and you simply have not been caught yet. The Criminal Investigation Division operates a special program known as the Voluntary Disclosure Practice. Essentially, it's a deal. If you voluntarily come forward before the IRS officially opens an investigation, you may qualify for criminal protection in exchange for cooperation and repayment. The remarkable reality is that people who enter this program voluntarily almost never go to federal prison. However, the opportunity window is extremely narrow. It remains available only until your case is assigned to a special agent. The second that special agent knocks on your door, the opportunity permanently disappears. If you know your past filings contain major problems, speaking with a skilled tax attorney about voluntary disclosure immediately could literally prevent prison time. So now we arrive at the central question. The IRS is not your friend, but they are not automatically your enemy either. They are a giant bureaucratic system. And like every system in the world, the people who truly understand the rules are usually the ones who succeed. Knowing your Fourth and Fifth Amendment protections, recognizing the different types of IRS agents, and memorizing the six-sentence protocol can become the difference between losing everything you built, the way Mike and Jim nearly did, or protecting your freedom and livelihood. So the next time you're enjoying coffee on a quiet Saturday morning and the doorbell rings, will you allow social politeness to overpower your constitutional protections? Or will you stay calm, remain behind the glass, and use the law exactly the way it was designed to protect you? The decision rests entirely with you, and it begins with the very first words spoken through that closed door. Thank you for spending this time here today, and remember, stay informed, stay composed, and always stay protected.